Mr. Chairman, for House Education, February 12th, 2025, Representative Bratton. Representative Erickson.
Here.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Here.
Representative Kelly.
Here.
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Singh.
Here.
Representative Strock.
Here.
Representative Williams.
Here.
Chairman Andrew.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. The senators are on the way. I'm trying to give them just a little extra time to get over here. And I think just wait 1 minute. Hopefully that hasn't changed. Maybe we'll just do 13. Let's see. All right. Senate File 13 is now on the table for our consideration, and I have asked the Wyoming Department of Education if they could help explain the bill. It's a committee bill, and it's from the previous interim, so I think we all need a refresher on what this one is doing.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Shelley Hamill with the Wyoming Department of Education. And as Chairman Andrew mentioned, this was a bill that came out of committee during interim session. And it's really overall just a cleanup bill to change some minor changes to the current statute. On page 1, there's a strike through of language on line 15 that says, and it goes on to 16, that says an instrument, and that was recommended to be changed to one or more instruments in recognition that school districts use a variety of instruments. On page 3, line 10, onto line 11, there's a strike through to remove the practice of a group reading plan. The recommendation to remove that was based on other language in the statute that requires school districts to provide a copy of the individual reading plan or the reading plan to parents of the student. And if it were part of a group reading plan, there would be a lot of work encompassed in redacting other students' names and information. So in practical application, most districts do not use group reading plans. They may have children in a group intervention setting, but they would each have their own separate reading plan. Over on page 4, on line 4, and in the middle also of line 10, you'll see an addition of the words "or assessment." That apparently came out of committee, and I'll speak to that during public comment. And then on page 5, on line 8, there's the word "and" being added in because of the strike through at the bottom of that paragraph, which is to remove some data collection components that really were pretty nebulous and frankly pretty difficult for school districts to report on. So one of those, the first one on line 9 says the student-teacher ratio for interventions, et cetera. And as anybody knows that's been in a school and worked with groups of kids that are receiving interventions, that student-teacher ratio could change frequently. Within a school building, there can be a variety of different group sizes. They can change, weekly. And then going on to talk about the use of certified tutors and the use of instructional facilitators and paraprofessionals in kindergarten through grade 3, trained in the delivery of evidence-based instruction and intervention programs selected by the district. So it was felt that it wasn't valuable data to be asking the school districts to report on. So one being nebulous and one not that valuable. And so that's why those recommendations were made.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Vice Chair Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Hamill, thank you for being here. It's always good to see you. I do remember some discussion in the interim around the idea of this screening versus assessment. And I guess my recollection had to do with they are two different things, basically. So maybe creating some confusion. While schools may use assessments for various reasons in their reading program, that here we were talking about a certain kind of screening that we wanted reporting. Is my memory correct on that?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Lawley, I think your memory is spot on. The addition of, on page 4, line 3 and 4, and then again on line 10, the addition of or assessment looks as though someone is attempting to add that as a companion or a possibility for the intent and purposes of the screener. But in reality, that using an assessment would potentially undermine the purpose of collecting, utilizing a screener and collecting that screening data. So a screening instrument is specifically developed to be able to be a very quick check to look for a red flag. It doesn't necessarily identify what the difficulty is, but it lets the educational team know there's potentially a problem here. And it's usually, we screen in 5 different areas. And then that would give information to the team to say, which of these areas do we need to start looking into? Whereas an assessment might be more generalized. For example, the YTOP is an assessment, but it doesn't really drill down into those foundational reading skills that an educational team would need to be apprised of, that there was potentially a challenge. So screeners are usually expected to take no more than 5 minutes. 3 times a year is what the current statute requires.
Further questions? Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I just wanted to clarify because on first reading, I think I misunderstood it, but I think I have it now. In this bill, there is no restriction of instructional strategies that teachers or paras may use. What we're doing here is eliminating a way to categorize or report these individual plans for students due to privacy concerns.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Kelly, in regards to the strike through of the group reading plan, exactly.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further comment from the WDE? Anyone else want to say? All right, I think we got through that. Is there any public testimony on this bill? Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Bill Winnie, Sublette County. I support the bill. These things are important. I had a son who, when we were stationed in Omaha, Nebraska, in their educational system, had a teacher that was deficient in the 1st and 2nd grade reading skills. Now, we didn't realize that until halfway through 3rd grade. My wife has a master's degree in reading education, and she had to start getting into real diagnostics to figure it out. I'd note that reading education is a different curriculum from other things called language arts. We pulled him out of school, sent him to an outfit in Florida. My wife and he went down for a week and a half, phonics. You may or may not like that program, but that's what my wife felt was the best thing. And we pretty much fixed the problem. He's 30-something now, doing well in industry, UW graduate. But you need to figure these things out early. And you need to recognize reading education as a different curriculum than other things called language arts. Subject to your questions, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, further public testimony. I forgot to check if there's any. There's no. All right, public testimony is now closed. Are there, committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Moved by Vice Chair Lawley, seconded by Representative Erickson. Are there any amendments? Vice Chair Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose an amendment on page 4, starting at the end of line 3 to the beginning of line 4, and delete the term, this phrase, words, or assessment, and do the same then on line 10, in the middle of the line or assessment. I think that's creates some confusion and could create confusion because they're kind of different things, because it's not that they can't use assessments, but they're looking for screening data. So I propose that amendment if I can get a second.
Do we have a seconded by Representative Bratton? Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we are voting on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Any further amendments? Discussion on the bill?
Question.
Question having been called, we are voting on Senate File 13. Please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 13, reading assessment and intervention amendments do pass as amended. Representative Bratton.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Kelly.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Strock.
Aye.
Representative Williams.
Aye.
Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Bill is passed the committee. Who would like to floor manage this particular bill, since it is a committee bill without an individual sponsor?
Oh. I could.
Okay, thank you.
Happy birthday.
All right, what are we on now? Senate File 73 is now on the table for our consideration, and the senators have arrived. Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Happy to be before you guys today with Senate File 73, Charter School Funding Amendments. Really the essence of what this bill does, I think, is in the title of the bill. This is an act relating to charter schools, allocating school district central office non-personnel expenses to the charter schools as specified, allocating school district central office personnel to charter schools on a proportional basis as specified, and providing for an effective date. This is not a very long bill. If you go to page 2, that's where the substance of the bill is. And you'll notice on page 2 that there is a lot of statutes that are cited, a lot of little places in those statutes, percentage calculations, going to attachments A and graphs. So to break that wording all down, you should have a little white sheet that says charter school funding. Do you guys all have, okay, good. This is where really what the language of this bill does is what is on your handout that you have. So currently in statute, there are some things that charter schools are not getting, and these are, remember, these are public charter schools, and they are calculated, these are our state charter schools too. So these are charter schools who, the students in those are calculated into the ADM for their districts. And so the way that these are funded is that those ADMs generate money within the district model. The money runs from the Wyoming Department of Education to the district, and then from the district, the money that's owed to the charter schools is calculated, and then it goes to the charter schools. So these children are all generating money from the district, but not all of that money is transferring with them to the public charter schools. So we have an inequity in the funding of these. So the 3 areas that this is happening in, that this bill addresses, is central office staff administration, central office staff, the secretarial, and then central office non-personnel expenses. So I'll just go through those a little bit. On the central office staff administration and central office staff secretarial and clerical, the formula for that is a little bit on the complex side. Districts will get like a superintendent just as a district, and then they might get like another. There are certain things, positions that they just get within that formula. And then there's other parts that are calculated based on the ADM of the students within the district. All we're doing on this part is taking a percentage of that ADM and for the students in the public charter schools and saying that the public charter schools get that percentage that they're generating for the district. That is the easiest, simplest, and cleanest way to do that. And then the third piece is the central office non-personnel expenses. That is $451.70 per ADM that each student generates on that. That's things for your office supplies, materials, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, paper for the copying machines. And currently, the charter schools or the districts are keeping that money, but there is money being generated in the block grant for the students going to the public charter schools. So you'll find then a graph in the middle of the handout. This was provided, I believe this graph came from the Wyoming Department of Education. This is their estimated cost of the proportional share of central office resources for each of the charter schools. I will note that what we have on here on this graph is both district approved charter schools and state approved charter schools. The state approved charter schools would automatically get this money. The district approved charter schools, they have contracts with their district. So as long as those contracts are in place, they would continue with the contracts that they currently have with the districts. And then they can look at this once they renegotiate those contracts. Mr. Chairman, that's the essence of the bill, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Braden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we don't have the handout. Okay. Thank you. May I follow up? Well, you can share. Okay, just not with, all right, can I ask another question?
Representative Braden.
Thank you, and I also would just like to ask, will this, some of this issue potentially be resolved in recalibration or no?
Senator Brennan.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bratton, great question. This is to deal with what is generated now as far as the block grant. So our charter schools are so we don't have a district that's separate for charter schools, our state authorized charter schools.
Right.
So that money has to go into the block grant. So recalibration might change like what the block grant looks like. But as far as what this does is this keeps the equitability between the public schools and the public charter schools so that they're being funded at the same equitable level. That will still remain through recalibration.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any comment from other legislators, state agencies? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Wanda Maloney, speaking on behalf of the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Just here to further clarify that she does support this bill and the additional funding for the charter schools. Happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Public testimony is now open. We will take 10 minutes in opposition and 10 minutes in support. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this bill? Would anyone like to, speak in support of this bill?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Flett is online and would like to speak in opposition.
Oh, let's let him go first. Thank
Okay.
you. Good afternoon. Sort of. Try it again. Mm. We cannot hear you. It's very quiet. I don't know if you could try a different mic or something.
Any better?
That's a little better. Go ahead. We'll see what happens.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Matt Flett. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Natrona County School District. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties, and I forgot that I had to click a button to oppose this bill, and when I get to the end of it, I'm not sure I'm going to. So we understand and respect the legislative intent of the state authorized charter schools are kind of like their own standalone school, and i.e. school district. However, since the authorization and creation of the state authorized charter schools, issues continue to arise that pull in the local school districts such as ourselves. So as Senator Brennan said, one piece of the statute that's overlooked was the central office funding. Obviously in current statute, the school district, no matter who the authorizer of the charter school is, retains the central office funding. And I want to be very clear, that's in statute and that's not a voluntary mechanism by the resident school district. Like we don't withhold the central office funding just because we want to. It's because it was statutorily, we have no authority to pass it on. So while Senate File 73 is an attempt to correct this oversight, because I think we can all agree the state authorized charter schools should probably receive some central office funding. We're not providing any technical assistance to them on a regular basis. It's just a lot different than a school board authorized charter. So, we do understand that they should receive some type of central office funding. I don't think this bill necessarily fixes that. I think the percentage of ADM to calculate central office funding is thinking outside the box and trying to get to a place I think we all kind of want to be. But I think it's going to take one inequity and move it to another inequity on like a statewide basis. And what I mean by that is in our school district, they're going to take a percentage of a very large central office funding number. But then when you boil it down to, is that the same funding if a school is a charter school in our district, and they receive $100 in funding and they have 200 students, does the public school district down the road with the same enrollment, are they going to have the same central office funding? There might be inequities like that just based on the pure math. I don't think this is necessarily a long-term solution. It does provide them the charter schools, some central office funding. I'm not coming at this from Natrona County School Districts losing central office funding. We all agree they should get something. I just think this is just another Band-Aid that has come up with these state authorized charter schools. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to probably ask for your no vote on this, but the big takeaway I hope this committee gets is I think these state authorized charter schools are a perfect interim topic for the state of Wyoming. I think we just throw this in as an interim topic. Let's get everybody in the same room. Let's work together. And rather than bringing a piece of legislation each and every year to fix something that came up, let's just hammer this thing out in an interim session and just fix it once and for all for everybody. So with that, Mr. Chair, I apologize for the technical difficulties. But that's kind of where we stand as a district on this bill. Like I said, we 100% support. They should probably have some central office funding. We just don't think this is the best mechanism to achieve that. And really, this would really consider strongly if you could take this up as an interim topic in the summer. So with that, I stand by for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, do we have any more testimony in opposition? And support. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, Boyd Brown, Executive Director for the Wyoming Association of School Administrators. Again, not really in support or against, feel like this is an issue that came up as an unintended consequence of the statewide charter school ability. We do believe that the statewide charter school approved charter schools should get some central office. I will echo a lot of what Matt said and not repeat it, but I think it is the opportunity to go into recalibration and also to go into an interim study to see exactly what we're doing there. I think that we may be creating inequities between the district charter schools and the statewide charter schools going forward. Again, I think it's a temporary solution, but if you put a sunset date on it for a year or two, I think that that might be something that would be amenable, and then we can kind of work on some of the long-term issues that may have come about by the statewide authorizing board. With that, I'll answer questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Any more testimony in support of the bill? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Christian Winger. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Prairie View Community School in Chugwater. I am in support of this bill. We are a state-authorized charter school operating within the district of Platte County School District Number 1. We do not have any contracts or any agreements in place with that school district. We operate 100% on our own. And so, the reality is as this current legislation stands, or the current law stands, is the money that is generated for our charter school that in the block grant per ADM does not get to us, and it doesn't get to our students. And so, this is a fix for that. I think there's lots of things in the charter school world that could probably be revisited down the road, but I'm not in favor of kicking the can further down the road to take things away from us, in a continued basis. So we are in support of this bill and would be happy to answer any questions.
Further question. Are there any questions? Representative Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many students does your school serve?
Chairman Andrew, through you to Bratton, we have currently 105 students in the school.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Good afternoon.
There I am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Diane Galloway, and I am the headmaster of Cheyenne Classical Academy. We are in our first inaugural year, 5 months into it, and I can tell you that these central office administrative funds would make a significant impact assistance to us as a school operating. All of these consumable supplies that these central office funds would supply, cleaning supplies. We're in the middle of flu season and we're having to hype up our disinfecting. The paper products would help tremendously. And as a state authorized charter school, all of the administrative responsibilities, such as a principal, a superintendent, a curriculum coordinator, dean of students, transportation director, and the Wyoming YTOP test administrator, fall on the shoulders of one person. It's a great deal to take on. It's worth it because we're offering a choice to parents here in this community. But I hope that you all recognize the positive impact that this funding would have on students. And it's an equity issue for all of Wyoming schools. I appreciate your commitment to our Wyoming schools and educating all Wyoming public school students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Ms. Klein.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Carrie Klein, and I represent the Wyoming Public Charter School Association. Thank you for consideration of this bill. I too would stand in support of not kicking the can down the road further and getting this money to the schools right now. I did want to address just the recalibration issue, just to kind of clarify further on that. Recalibration looks at the entire model. If they recalibrate the number of dollars that are going to go, it doesn't change how those are statutorily being distributed. So this actually would just change how those are being distributed and then would adjust for the model as that gets done during recalibration. I would also caution you a little bit on starting to go down the pathway of we have a district authorized school, we have a state authorized charter school. I think that we need to, in every way possible, treat those schools the same. I did want to reiterate that Senator Brennan's comment that what this doesn't change is any contract language that district authorized schools have with their authorizer, which is the district. And so although at the end of the day, this passes, the, statute would say this is what they're entitled to, it does mean that those are all on the table when they do talk to their districts for the services that they need to split up. So just wanted to reiterate a couple of those. Really, this is just an important bill to make sure that we don't have an inequity as we move forward. It allows them to receive a proportional amount, depending on, number of students they have, what they are generating. And we just really feel that flowing the funding to the school that's providing the services to the students is a common sense approach, and the way that the state dollars should be spent. So happy to answer any questions. Oh, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the chart and the graph and the handout that she was referring to is something that we had distributed yesterday. So I do have a few more of those copies if you need them.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you. Further public testimony?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bayteski is online.
All right, we'll take online comment.
Am I on?
You are on. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my comment. I am neither speaking in favor of or opposed to. I am just here to fill in some of the space with information. This is kind of an important year, if you think about it. 20 years ago, at this very session, is when this block grant model was put into place. The block grant model, as it's constructed, as it's been mentioned, specifically calls out portions of it that only allow the district to receive those funds, and that would be the central office funding, as Senator Brennan has said. We never envisioned, I don't think, to have state authorized charter schools. Saying that, what's happening now is the work of the folks in these charter schools, the expenses incurred in terms of central office materials and the like, do not go away. But what we're seeing is that those expenses are coming out of the classroom instead of the central office funding that a normal district would see. Saying that, you've heard a little bit about the inequity or the lack of the fact that this is a perfect solution. It is not a perfect solution simply because on the material side, it's quite easy to get there because you can just take the ADM and multiply it times the $451 and get to the material cost of it. When you start talking about the professional staffing portion of it, the professional staffing portion of a district is established on prototypical models. So in order to really be equitable about this, we would need to go and find, for example, let's take Prairie View. We would need to find a prototypical school, and I believe one of the small Sheridan schools fits this category, and find out how much administrative staff do they really receive and clean it up and allow Prairie View to have that kind of administrative staff. But like everyone else, I think the longer we delay, the more we are not providing these schools with the resources that they really need in order to get the job done. So saying that, I would encourage that we move forward with this bill, and perhaps as we get into recalibration or whatever, we start to clean up this bill or clean up the staffing portion. But, this is just one example Mr. Chair, and I think you're going to find that the Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board is going to come forward with an interim topic for you. This is just one example of places that are laced throughout statute that really did not think about the fact that you would have schools that do not reside within a district, and which creates a difference in how those schools are handled. So, like I said, I would appreciate if you could move forward with this, and we'll clean it up as we're moving forward. But meanwhile, like I said, these schools are not receiving that funding, and it's coming out of the classroom, which I don't think is really right. Thank you. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Moved by Vice Chair Lally, seconded by Representative Strzok. Are there any amendments? Any discussion on the bill? We are voting on Senate File 73. Please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 73, charter school funding amendments do pass. Representative Bratton.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Kelly.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Strzok.
Aye.
Representative Williams.
Aye.
Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
9 ayes.
The bill is passed the committee. House Senate File 131 is now on the table for our consideration. Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman Andrew and committee. I bring you Senate File 131, Charter School Leasing, and ask for your favorable consideration on it. Folks, this is a pretty simple bill, and it kind of fixes something that I caused myself probably a year or two ago that we came. We actually tried to look at being able to get set up for charter schools for leasing, and we put in a adequacy standard with the state. So what 131 really does, it removes the requirement of the state construction department to make a determination of adequate educational facilities within the school district when determining the eligibility of the charter school to receive lease payments. So on page 1, beginning on lines 11 and going to page 2, line 7, it's got conforming language to remove the statutory reference to Wyoming Statute 21-3-110-AX, which is repealed in this bill. And page 2, line 9 repeals the Wyoming Statutes 21-3-110-AX-A2, and which states that the department determines no adequate educational facilities exist when the applicable district for operation of the school district. Folks, what we really did, we tried to set them up, and so for a charter school to qualify for a lease, they have to be a statutorily defined and approved charter school. They get a lease payment from the state if they're not in a district-owned facility and are providing their own facility. So currently, right now, the state construction department determines if they've got adequate facilities or not. And what's really happened is we've come up with some unintended consequences. You kind of heard that a little on the last bill, was never contemplated. You might have 2 charter schools want the same facility, or that the state construction department might determine that a building, say here in town or in your town, that's owned by the district is available and adequate, but they either don't want to give it or they have other plans for it. So once that happens, then they're triggered and they're in a catch-22. Then they don't qualify for the lease, nor can they have a facility. So we're really putting it back to where they still can go out and look for it. Does not preclude them moving into district facilities still, but it's one-on-one. They sit down and negotiate the lease with the state and do it. This is really a needed bill. Back to what we do is, I can tell you that it puts them on good footing to be able to keep doing it. Right now, according to the state construction department, we may have some impact as early as fall of 2025 on this. So this bill is really pretty necessary to make sure we continue on. We heard some great testimony. You know, we're no longer at the dream phase of the charter schools. They're on the ground. We're educating kids. We're putting some choice out there, and we're really proud of what's happened. And back into a little of your testimony, I think you're going to see more charter school bills. It's a little like starting a new school system. As no one on this committee should be surprised to see charter bills continue to come as we strive to make education choice happen to the very best we can and the most economic we can. And it's just that simple. And if I haven't explained it well enough, I'm more than happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Would any state agencies like to comment on? All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Del McComie. I'm the Director for the State Construction Department. And as the bill sponsor mentioned, I think there's a lot of things that weren't thought of when we started with the charter school and the number of them that are coming online. He gave a couple of examples that dealt with when we, the department, might find a school available and adequate for a charter school and some of the conflicts that arise there. Interestingly enough, this was discussed with the Select Committee on School Facilities in its June and its August meeting also, in some of the situations that have occurred. Right now, for example, one of them that wasn't mentioned here in Laramie County, there's, due to the Mercer and the acceptance by the board, in the future, we'll be taking a number of schools offline. We have 3 charter schools here in Laramie County. So as we take the first one off, what we would look at and see if it's adequate, does it, have condition issues or things like that? That might be one of the reasons it'd be going offline. We would say, no, that's not an adequate school for a charter school because we, the state, are taking that, saying that that is a facility that we shouldn't have our students in at this point in time. But if it was found that, yes, that would be a school that they could move into, again, we have one school, we have 3 charter schools. So I go to the first charter school and I say, we found this available and adequate. And if they say, well, we don't want to move, and some of our charter schools here are having long-term leases up to 20 years with the folks that are building the building for them, then we would not provide the funding for the lease because they turn that down. So now I go to charter school number 2 and they say the same thing. No, we don't want to take it. Then I go to charter school number 3 and they say, yeah, we'll take it. So what do I not fund the first 2 that did because there was one available and the other 2? I mean, those are the sort of issues that we're running into right now on trying to make these decisions as a department. And so again, we had a lot more testimony. I won't bore you with all of that from the 2 interim committees, but certainly could provide our speaking points if the committee wanted that information later on. So I think at this point in time, you've heard this from the previous bill, actually, where they were talking about maybe something to be looked at the interim to try and solve some of these. That was the discussion that came out of the Select Committee. I think their feeling is in the broader scale of what's going on in the charter school world, there are things that are being done in this bill that may or may not affect what we do. And when we bring a bill forward through the Select Committee, some of that might affect unintended consequences because we're not looking at the big picture and probably an overall, I think, look at charter schools in general, so we're all on the same page. And when one side makes a decision, the other side, we know who's that affecting or who's that not affecting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. The Department of Education. To comment? No. All right. We will move on to public testimony. We'll do 10 minutes in opposition first and then 10 minutes in support. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this bill? Seeing none. Anyone in support? Welcome back.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm Diane Galloway, the headmaster of the Cheyenne Classical Academy. Right now, we are in a repurposed church building that is certainly inadequate for as much as we want or the number of students who want to come into our school. If you secure our lease agreement monies, it means that we will be consolidating our elementary and middle school into one building. We're right now looking at architectural plans that make for a very dynamic learning environment for our students, offering that choice to Cheyenne parents. And we believe that if we can move ahead and know that our lease is secure and we won't be forced into inadequate buildings that the district has turned down, we can truly move ahead and offer an alternative to our Wyoming parents here as a model school in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I really urge you to support this and secure us so that we can move ahead and offer what we need to offer and show that charter schools can do this for the state of Wyoming and our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ms. Klein?
Hi, good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Carrie Klein, Wyoming Public Charter School Association. I won't belabor the point, just wanted to again highlight the importance of how we need to address this now rather than later, and that we are very excited to work with you during the interim, and that is something we're ready and able to do, and our desire is to really make sure we continue to move the ball forward with charter schools and create a great policy environment.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Further public testimony in support of the bill? I think we have one
Yep, Ms. Bayteski again.
online. All right, let's go online.
Well, Janine Bayteski, Wyoming Charter School Authorizing Board. Thank you for having me again. I would just encourage, as you're thinking about this bill, to think about some of the things that, I spent 20 years on my local school district board. And I will say one of the things that is very challenging is when you have to move into a new school building. And I think that anything we put in place, we need to ensure that we aren't shuffling kids around year after year after year because somebody else's building becomes available to us. So stability and, like I said, think about how disruptive this can be to the students. So to just cut off their lease because another building comes available is pretty uncomfortable to me, because I think the impact of that could be great upon that school and the kids, as well as the cost of moving. So thank you. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Moved by Representative Singh and seconded by Representative Gugemas. Are there any amendments to the bill? Is there any discussion? All right, we are voting on Senate File 131. Please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, on Senate File 131, charter school leasing, do pass. Representative Bratton.
Aye.
Representative Erickson.
Aye.
Representative Guggenmoss.
Aye.
Representative Kelly.
Aye.
Representative Lawley has left an absentee vote of aye. Representative Singh.
Aye.
Representative Strock.
Aye.
Representative Williams.
Aye.
Chairman Andrew.
Aye.
9 ayes.
The bill has passed the committee. We are now adjourned.